Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another edition of Know Your Enemy. My name is Michael Beck, deputy editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, joined as always, goodness, get the intro out, Mike, by one Mr. Jeffrey Benedict, BTSC's film guru. Jeffrey, how are you doing tonight, sir? I'm doing really good. I'm doing really good this night. Interesting. I think we'll need to dive into that fairly quickly into this episode, but our special guest, Chris Blystone from Stampede Blue. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Our pleasure. Now, this is a fairly substantial game for either team. One team's been having a super solid, not as streaky years as the other team. I think we both know who we're talking about here. But Chris, what's the vibe going with the Colts this year, and how's everything feeling down at Indianapolis?
It's pretty positive. It's been kind of building over the past few weeks as the offense has kind of caught up to the performance the defense has had. It's been a flat performance, really, not necessarily really high highs or really low lows, which I guess is a positive thing. The question a lot of Colts fans have had is, can they raise their game when it gets down to crunch time? It's getting toward the playoffs. And if the Colts can get in, flat doesn't always work in the playoffs. You can be steady, but you sometimes need to have those big performances. And it's been nice to see the offense kind of show up over the past few weeks and give some hope. So I think it's optimistic at this point.
Now, Jeffrey, simple question. Is the sky falling?
It is partly falling. Yes. The sky is kind of falling in Pittsburgh. There's some hope, though. There's some hope. We'll have time to get into that, but there is some hope. This team has a few weeks left. They're running out of time to get this fixed, but they're working at it.
Working at it, they are. I think some of us watching that last Monday night game, a bit of a tough one, bit of a challenge for some Steeler fans, or probably all Steeler fans to get through, to be completely honest. But Chris, the Steelers started the year 11-0, find themselves on a 3-game losing streak, and have completely fallen off. Are the Steelers ripe for the picking?
So I'm always nervous about this. The Steelers, it's funny because I went back and looked at a stat because I was just curious how the Colts have never fared well in my fandom time against the Steelers, and I wasn't sure how bad it was. And so since 1998, you think of that as being like the golden era of Colts and Patriots as far as, kind of getting a one-up on us. They seem to be the team that always stopped us. Actually, we did better against the Patriots than the Steelers. I think they only won like 22% of the time against the Steelers in that time. So we have definitely got a complex about the Steelers. And I think if most fans were honest, they would say we marked on this game on the calendar as a loss at just at the beginning of the season. Just cross it off. Many Colts fans are of a mind that until they beat the Steelers, that's just going to be an automatic loss in our minds. So you could say we've been affected, but I don't know. I mean, I think that the Colts are a good match. If you take that away and just look at the product on the field, I think it's a close matchup. I think they both do things that will be really interesting to see. But I would tell you there are very few Colts fans that go into this game with any kind of confidence, and it probably wouldn't matter what either team was playing like.
You know what, though? I think that probably goes in Indianapolis's favor, because the last 2 weeks against Buffalo, I believe the Steelers hadn't lost to the Bills. It was a really long streak. I can't remember the exact date. The Bengals, they haven't lost to them since 2015, and then the Washington football team, they haven't lost them since the early 90s, I believe was the number. So if the Colts have been struggling, that probably means the Colts are probably going to end up winning the game. If recent history means anything, Jeffrey, you're shaking your head. I guess the only proper question right now is, are the Steelers going to win another game this year?
I don't know if they're going to win another regular season game. I really don't. They're what we saw in that last game was a little weird. And really what they're doing is they're treating this kind of like another preseason. It's like the playoff preseason right now. They seriously, in the last game, their offense didn't make sense until I looked at a bunch of different angles, and I was like, okay, what they're doing is they're treating this like preseason, and they're trying to like reinvent their offense and do it right this time. They're trying to force Ben Roethlisberger to do things he's uncomfortable with, that they need him to do for this offense to get fixed. And they're just throwing it at him and being like, well, we're going to power through. And if you're going to have a bad game, you're going to have a bad game. But this team realizes that the offense has been solved. The offense they were running has been solved. They've got to do it right. They got to go back, implement Matt Canada stuff, get the run game going, and do this correctly. And they've got a couple weeks left to do it before the playoffs. Nothing before the playoffs matters. This team isn't aiming for 12-4. They're not aiming for 13-3. They're not even aiming for their 23rd AFC North, their 23rd division title. They're not even aiming for that. They're aiming for a playoff run. And so they have the ability to treat the last couple of games as just glorified practices where they're trying to get this offense fixed. Hopefully it works.
Oh man, 11-0 start and then 0-5 collapse would be pretty historic. I've been trying to keep my eyes away from some of that national media type stuff, but I could only imagine how bad that could be. But getting into the matchup and try to get away from the doom and gloom, but I'm sure there's going to be definitely underlying tones of that throughout the episode. Chris, one player in particular I really want to ask you about is DeForest Buckner and how he's changed that defense and how good he's been.
Yeah, somehow a guy who has done what he's done has been an underrated player this year. Didn't make the Pro Bowl, which is definitely on everybody's radar. You can expect him to be very motivated to make an impression there. And I don't think that anybody would disagree that the Pro Bowl has its issues, but Colts players definitely take it seriously and kind of play with a chip on their shoulder. Chris Ballard really couldn't have done a better job spending that first round pick because he's absolutely changed this defense from the top to bottom. And you really need to look no more into it than the difference between the first game against the Titans and the second game where he was absent from that game and it was a beatdown and Derrick Henry went wild. They honestly just play completely differently with him there. Grover Stewart, the nose tackle, has been on fire this season because he's getting individual one-on-one matchups and eating these guys up. You've got guys on the edge, Justin Houston, who's really not in his prime, and he's not bad, but he's definitely lost a step. But he's able to play smart and get one-on-one matchups because guys have to deal with, and they've got to bring protection in to deal with DeForest Buckner. He's been a huge disruptive force, even though the stat line doesn't necessarily reflect that. And his pressure in the middle and pushing the pocket has actually increased the ability of the coverage. It was an area the Colts fans thought, especially in the early offseason, that we were going to address the corner position more. Xavier Rhodes obviously was brought in and has been okay, but man, it all starts up front. And when DeForest Buckner plays like he has been playing, it just makes the whole rest of that defense better.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, just one first-round pick for DeForest Buckner. Was that the trade?
Yep, pick 13. That was the trade. And they had to re-sign him to a pretty nice deal, but honestly, worth it.
Well, I mean, Khalil Mack, I think that was like 3 firsts in a couple seconds. So I think you came out on top, kind of like how the Steelers pulled Mink away. How was that only one first-round pick as well? But Jeffrey, talking about Buckner specifically, the Steelers' offensive line has been putrid the last couple weeks. They've been all right in pass pro, but as soon as they have those long developing plays, we know why Ben's been throwing the ball quickly. How are the Steelers going to stop DeForest Buckner in this defensive line?
Oh, that's a good question. I was watching the film, and David DeCastro actually had a better game than what he's been having. I mean, that's faint praise, but he did look better against Cincinnati's defensive line, which was missing everybody. Like, there's nobody on that line right now. So he looked better, but DeForest Buckner... Like this is going to be an absolute nightmare for that interior offensive line that has been struggling. They've been struggling a lot, and that's going to be a serious challenge if he can collapse the inside of the pocket. We saw Ben take a sack last week when the Bengals weren't getting good pressure. We saw him take a sack because he started in shotgun, took a 3-step drop, and they sacked him 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like, edge rushers don't have a problem getting to you if you drop back that far. They don't even have to turn the corner. They can just run straight back. So if Buckner is able to dominate the middle of the offensive line like he has been with most teams, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really bad news for the Steelers.
Now, I did want to talk about this a little bit later, but Chris, you didn't bring up Justin Houston. I'm just curious, his game this year. You said he's taken a bit of a step back, but Justin Houston in general, is he still one of those kind of guys you got to look out for as an edge rusher?
Absolutely. And I guess probably I should clarify that in terms of a step back, I just mean he's lost a little bit of his speed. He's not a speed rusher. He's not going to beat you that way. And he's just smart. He's got great hands. So he's getting guys with his good hand work. He's got several different, pass rush moves that he can beat you with. And he's a really powerful player still. Not a player that you can leave one-on-one and expect to win that matchup all game long. And he's done well. I mean, he's got 2 safeties on the year, which is insane. He's, I think, tied the career safeties. I think he's tied for the top career safeties, which isn't obviously exclusively on him, but he's been very opportunistic. He's been a very valuable asset, but I don't think that you would see that kind of production from him if he was the top guy like he was last year. He'd have an okay year, and you'd feel good about him as a player, but he's so much better if he's not the main guy. If he can kind of be a supplemental player on that line, he really is helpful in that role.
Now, Jeffrey, Alejandro Villanueva had his worst game in quite some time against the Bengals. He had his lunch ate pretty much all game long. Is this going to be another long week? Playing up against Justin Houston, it just seems like a recipe for disaster right now.
I like Villanueva against Houston as a better matchup. I like him better in this game than I did against Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson is another guy that's underrated. He's, again, no help. He's a guy who has no help, but he does a good job himself. It's just way too easy to scheme and have your quarterback know, just take a couple steps, away from that guy. Make sure you're not exposing yourself to him. It's a lot easier. So I think Alejandro Villanueva should have a bounce back game. We'll see.
Now, Chris, the Colts are new to this kind of 0-4 quarterback rivalry, but the quarterback rivalry definitely isn't new for the Colts by any means. But Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, they actually haven't played a ton of times throughout their career, despite both being in the AFC. But just by your perspective, does this kind of seem like the last time these two guys will play in a regular season game against one another?
I guess that depends, because honestly, the way that Rivers has played, I think I fully expect him to be back next year. The Colts are not in a great spot to go get a quarterback, and I think they've got some other positions they're going to want to address. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Phillip Rivers again, and I guess it'll just depend on if Ben is back, but it's definitely one of the last times. And I think that it's impressive what these guys have both done. And it's always cool to see these kinds of matchups with guys who are legendary players that are, I don't know if Rivers is going to be a Hall of Fame guy, but you're talking about potential Hall of Fame guys that just really, man, it's cool. And you kind of have to sit back and appreciate it as fans who watch Peyton Manning. It goes by so fast that you really sometimes just need to appreciate, you take a breath and appreciate that you're seeing some of these great players. You don't just always go get a Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that. Sometimes you struggle for a while. So, as I guess Chiefs fans know, before they got, Patrick Mahomes, you don't necessarily get that guy immediately. And so definitely excited to see that matchup and have to kind of take a breath and appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ben Roethlisberger is slated to make somewhere in the neighborhood of $43 million next year. So I can assure you, Ben Roethlisberger is going to be playing in the NFL next year at the very least. But Jeffrey, same question to you. Is this, do you think this could be the last time you see Rivers and Ben?
There's a chance. There is a chance, solely because the team who wins this game is most likely going to win their division, and the team who doesn't is most likely not going to win their division. I think if the Steelers lose this game, they're probably going to lose to the Browns. Browns are going to be insanely fired up to beat this team if they have a chance to win the division. So I would say likely, because that means next year, I don't think they would play each other next year. And I don't know if Ben Roethlisberger is going to be around that long. That said, I know a lot of people are saying, the Steelers need to get rid of Ben and move on. But we've all seen this franchise. We've all seen how they treat Ben Roethlisberger. That's not Dan Rooney. That's Art II in that owner's office. And as long as Ben Roethlisberger wants to be a Steeler, this team will be ride or die with Ben. And that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Chris, getting back to the Colts quarterback, Phillip Rivers, of course, his first year there, replacing Jacoby Brissett, who obviously is still on the team. But how has he changed the Colts offense moving into that spot and being that kind of veteran force driving the offense?
I mean, it's been night and day different. And, Colts fans were so frustrated because of one of the problems that Brissett struggled with last season was getting through his progressions, getting the ball out quickly. He actually has a Big Ben-like ability to avoid pressure and not get taken down, but then he just throws the ball out of bounds or takes a needless sack later or runs out of bounds or would just, throw a 100-mile-per-hour fastball to his running back 5 yards downfield. He just did. I mean, he'd make an incredible play with his feet and then something mind-boggling, and it was frustrating to watch. Rivers is such a smart player that he's doing things at the line the Colts haven't seen in a long time. I'm not sure Andrew Luck was moving through things the way that he does, maybe. But I mean, they're just seeing him be able to get them in the right looks. They're putting themselves in position to do well early, and he's making good throws. He's been accurate. He hasn't been. I mean, his throw is still as ugly as it's the ugliest throwing motion I've ever seen. It does not get easier to watch. I mean, the more I've watched it, the more it's like, oh man, this is just gross. I don't know how he makes the ball go where it's supposed to go throwing like that, but he does. And he's done it for a long time. So yeah, I think that Colts fans have begrudgingly come around to Phillip Rivers. They were not huge fans of him in general, overall, but I think we've come around because he's played really, really pretty well. And I think he's on pace at this point to take the fewest sacks that he's had in his career, which is probably playing a significant role in that.
Now, Jeffrey, quick side question. Who's an uglier throw motion, Byron Leftwich or Phillip Rivers?
Ooh. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
I would go with Phillip Rivers being ugly. Byron's was just slow. You're like, come on, dude. You're like watching it like, come on, throw the ball. Oh, there we go. Finally the ball's out. That was that's bad, dude. That's a nasty question.
Coming back to you with a little bit more fair question. How can the Steelers stop Phillip Rivers and that Colts offense?
Did it last year when he was with the Chargers. The Steelers defense does well against Phillip Rivers. They've always seemed to do well against him. The question this year, this game is what it's been the last couple of games. How are the inside linebackers going to play? Because we are so beat up there. Vince Williams is back, and that's good news because as bad as Vince Williams is in man coverage, him and Joe Hayden work so well together that's almost not a problem. Like, he is almost not even an issue in coverage because anything he can't cover, Joe Hayden jumps and makes plays on. So you can't really attack Vince Williams in our defense when Joe Hayden's playing healthy. And right now they're going to have that. So that's a good strength. But honestly, right now, Phillip Rivers is impressive for the Colts, what he is doing over there. Like, I was looking, one of the pet peeves for me on the Steelers is our leader in yards per target is still Chase Claypool at 7.8 yards per target. And there's only one other player with over 7 yards per target, and that's James Washington. All the guys Ben throws to the most are down in the sixes in yards per target, and that's absolutely terrible. Compare that to Phillip Rivers, who right now his 6 of his top 7 targets are over 8 yards per target, and his top 3 are like 8.5 and 8.6 and 8.2. Like, that's what Ben used to be doing. That's what Ben was doing in previous seasons. We haven't seen that. 2018, he was kind of dropping off with that. This year, there's no yards. He's not gaining. We're not getting plays downfield. Phillip Rivers is doing that on this Colts team, and it really is working. It's like Chris was saying, he's not taking sacks. He's staying upright. You don't see him getting skittish in the pocket. That was one of the things we saw last year when the Steelers beat San Diego with Devlin Hodges at quarterback. Is they had Phillip Rivers, hearing footsteps and throwing panic throws because he was just not wanting to get hit. That's not the Phillip Rivers we're seeing this year, and he's playing great.
Now, Chris, talking about the guys that are protecting Phillip Rivers, and one guy in particular, obviously Quentin Nelson, one of, if not the best interior offensive lineman in the game today. A year ago, Cam Hayward had an outstanding performance against Quentin Nelson, one that I don't think many people were expecting, no matter how good Hayward we know him to be. But do you have any reason to believe that Quentin Nelson's a little extra motivated for this game to try to get the better of Hayward after last year's performance?
Oh, I absolutely think so. He's exactly that kind of guy who's going to be thinking about that. And it's one of the things Colts fans love about him. He's got a little bit of nastiness to him. And I'm sure that he definitely was irritated that that happened. But also, when you get 2 really good players together, you're going to have that happen to some degree. And so I expect it's going to be a really fun back and forth between those two. You've got Nelson. I don't know. He hadn't had a bad year, but it hasn't been as over the top impressive this season as it was last season. he's still been a pretty consistent player. And it may just be that the hype on a guard can only carry you so far, where you're still getting highlight reels weekly. Not that many of us, there's some of us football heads who want to watch that, but some casual fans, there's only so much, guard pulling and such that you can watch before you're ready to move on to other things. But he's been impressive. I'll be interested to see how that goes. I don't know that I've really seen him get thrashed by anybody consistently all season long. He's been pretty excellent for the most part. So interested to see it, and I'm sure it's not been on his mind since that point.
Hey, as a former college offensive lineman, I've sat through some meetings where we watched the same guard pulling for an hour and just broke that down. So it's fun. It's great. We love it. And I think we all do. It's a good time. It's not boring at all, actually. But Jeffrey, coming back over to you, Cam Hayward, can you break down how good he was last year and whether or not you think he can duplicate that against Quentin Nelson again now?
He was dominant last year. Quentin Nelson, I did a whole film room just on Cameron Hayward on playing Quentin Nelson after that. There was a tweet about it and it got coverage on the national news. Watching that game, Quentin Nelson won like 2 reps out of that whole game. And most of the time he was just holding on. Like he was just like trying not to get smoked. I don't know if he was nursing an injury. You never know. Like they're not going to say if like, I had a little bit of a leg issue that day. It wasn't much, but against Cam Hayward, that matters. That can be the difference in a game like that. I don't know what to expect this game though, because he's going to be coming for Cam Hayward. He is very aware of that. He's going to be looking to right that wrong. And we all saw Cam Hayward's face and his body language that last game. That is an angry man. He is angry at himself. He's angry at the team. He's angry at everything right now. He is not okay with what is happening with this team. And you can see it all over his face. Watch his interviews. Watch him in like any of the pictures you see of him during the game on the bench. That is a man who has just had it. He's absolutely had it. And I'm interested to see what he does, because this could be a matchup of 2 men who are just like absolutely not willing to lose this matchup. So that's the 5-star matchup of the game. That is absolutely the number 1 matchup of the game is Quentin Nelson and Cameron Hayward. And I can't wait to see it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and as much as we're hyping it now I'm all worried that something stupid on the first play is going to happen, like someone getting turf toe, and it's like, oh, great, that we hyped it all up for that to happen. Are you kidding me? Knock on wood really quick, but continuing along, Chris, on the opposite side of the defensive spectrum here, TJ Watt for the Steelers. He's also been having an outstanding season. How are the Colts going to try to limit TJ from himself having a big game in the Colts backfield?
Well, you've got Braden Smith, who has actually had a pretty solid season. He's kind of an unknown. He goes under the radar in that 2018 class because when you have Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson as your first couple of picks, it's really easy to be the guy that kind of falls through the cracks. But he's been really pretty solid at right tackle and has had really good luck on that side, and kind of the quiet offensive lineman who's been really solid. They have typically rolled help over to him because one of his struggles is with anybody who can speed rush him. He struggles. He's a powerful guy, so if you can get hands on guys, he's tough to deal with. But a lot of times they've rolled Jack Doyle over to help him. They'll use the tight ends pretty heavily in those protections, and really they've gotten pretty good pass protection chipping with running backs. Their running backs coach Tom Rathman has just really done a great job getting the running backs coached up to be really good, recognizing guys and getting that extra second. Phillip Rivers in general gets rid of the ball pretty quickly. So if you've got guys who are able to do that, tie players up and tie pass rushers up with tight ends and with running backs chipping, and he can get rid of the ball pretty quickly. He's not mobile at all. I think the statue of Peyton Manning out front of Lucas Oil Stadium moves better than he does, but he doesn't really have to because he's getting rid of the ball really quickly, and they've done a pretty good job of kind of rolling protection to kind of help guys out against really good pass rushers.
Now, Jeffrey, keeping with the theme of the Steelers linebackers, you mentioned Vince Williams a little bit earlier, but his return, what does that mean to this defense as a whole if he is 100% coming back from the COVID list?
Well, no matter what, it means Marcus Allen isn't playing the whole game. Marcus Allen is not that guy. He is not a player you want playing linebacker the whole game. He filled in. He's a fill-in. He was second string dime linebacker to start this this season, special teams only type of guy. And now last game, he was playing 100%. He's playing every nickel snap, every, 3-4 snap. He was our dime linebacker. And teams just are going to go after him. If they're seeing him that much, they're going to learn how to beat him. They're going to go after him. And they were. They attacked him like mercilessly. Buffalo went after him. Cincinnati went after him. He's a weak link. Getting him off the field, getting Vince Williams in there is going to do wonders for the run defense. A big boost for the run defense. That can't even be overstated. And also in the passing game and as a pass rusher, the Steelers with Avery Williamson and Marcus Allen get no pass rush from your inside linebackers. You could leave them unblocked and they wouldn't know how to get the quarterback down. That's a little overly harsh, but you know what I'm saying. Vince Williams is a dynamic pass rusher. He's going to be very solid in run support and in those zones. He's just better. He knows the defense. He's smart about it. You saw Marcus Allen taking his first read, and when he passed that guy off, it was like he wasn't picking up that he was, there's someone else entering his zone until like a second later, and he was just being late to the ball. Vince Williams is much smarter than that, much better at moving around and reading the whole play. So I expect that to be a big boost to the defense.
Now, Chris, talking about the Colts rookies, specifically Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, what have they meant to the offense, and what have they been able to do in year one thus far?
So it's been interesting for both of them. I think it's been a really tough year for rookies in general. Obviously, we've had good rookie performances, but I think for rookies not having normal training camps, it's been tough. Wide receiver specifically is a pretty tough position to kind of figure out as a rookie. A lot of times rookie receivers struggle, and Pittman hasn't exactly struggled, but he didn't come along maybe as fast as we hoped that he would. He dealt with an injury. He had to have surgery. He had a really weird, I think it's called compartment syndrome. He had a really weird calf injury that kind of knocked him out for several weeks, and he had to have a surgery on it. And that kind of delayed things. But really, he's been a solid contributor. The Colts spread the ball around a lot. So regardless of how well he had played, he was not going to dominate in targets or anything like that. But he's gotten to be a really nice possession receiver. He's 6'4", 223. He's a big guy. And he's become much more reliable for Rivers. He can move surprisingly well for a guy that size in the open field. And so they like to get him on these little shallow crossers and drag routes and things like that and get the ball in his hands because he can run over a guy. Gets up to he's not blazing fast, but for a 223-pound man, he moves pretty good. And not somebody that, a small nickelback or somebody wants to take on if they've got to hit him in the open field. And so he's been solid, and I expect that we're going to see more of him. Unfortunately for him, T.Y. Hilton kind of made his resurgence right about the time Pittman was really coming on. And so he's faded a little bit. He's still been getting 5 to 6 targets a game, and I expect he'll be an impact really between the 20s. He hasn't got a lot of looks in the red zone. Jonathan Taylor's really the guy who's been impressive because he was really struggling at the early part of the season. Not real patient. He was hitting holes like he was running behind Wisconsin's offensive line and expecting these holes to open up that were massive. And a lot of times he's running into the back of a blocker because the hole's not there. And he wasn't really ready maybe to take that step. Marlon Mack ruptured his Achilles in the first half of the first game. And so he kind of took a whole bunch of snaps really early and showed the struggle. And it's taken him every bit of 8 to 10 weeks to kind of figure out what he needed to do. And you watch him as a runner now, he's night and day different from what he looked like early on in the season. He's patient. I made a comparison, not a good one, so Steelers fans will undoubtedly not buy this at all, but he runs at the line a little bit like Le'Veon Bell, just a very patient runner waiting for his blocks. He's not the same style of runner, and he's not the same size or anything in that regard, but the patience, I haven't seen a Colts running back run that way. Marlon Mack does a little bit, but I haven't seen a guy run that way, and I don't know if it's because we have over the past several weeks played some pretty bad run defenses, and that's probably a large part of it. But as a runner, he's really rounded into form at the right time. And man, the Colts need him. If he can run like that, he's a really great talent. He seems to have gotten his bearings, but it's going to be interesting to see if that sticks.
Random side note on Michael Pittman. I love how he went to USC and his younger brother went to Oregon. I just love that. It just really makes me laugh when they go to rival schools. Opposite to the Watts that just all went to Wisconsin, all lame and whatnot. But Oh, well, Jeffrey, continuing on with rookies, but the Steelers defensive rookie, I've asked you about Alex Highsmith ever since he took over for Bud Dupree after he tore his ACL. Another week, how is he looking? Is he kind of coming into his own as a pass rusher for the Steelers?
He shows so much promise and so much potential, and it's just not there yet. Like, you're seeing the moves, and he's getting to the quarterback just a hair late, or he's seeing the play, but it's just a tad bit late. Cincinnati saw how aggressively he was attacking the run game and the quarterback, trying to get that over that hump and start making those plays. And that's where you saw Ryan Finley start running the ball, pulling it and running the ball, because Highsmith wasn't checking the quarterback at all. He was going straight for the running back. They gashed us with that a couple of times. He is not Bud Dupree. He is going to be really good. We've seen that. This is not a miss. This guy has the skills. He's going to be a good edge rusher with really star potential if everything comes together for him. But he's not that guy yet. But he's good.
Okay, let me load this up before we go into break here. Guys, with all due respect, let's talk about what it's going to take to win against the Colts. So with that said, let's go into our break. And if you're listening to the podcast side, you can just click over to part 2 right now. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, just hang tight, sit there. We will be back in a quick moment. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time for part 2 of Know Your Enemy. Of course, my name is Michael Beck, joined as always by one Mr. Jeffrey Benedict, and our special guest down below from Stampede Blue, Chris Blystone. Chris, getting right back into our conversation here, how do you anticipate the Colts trying to move the ball against this Steelers defensive front?
I definitely think that they're going to try to run. Frank Reich's running game really does kind of dictate his play calling a little bit. He is such a better play caller when the Colts are running the ball effectively. It's a very different offense when they are not getting behind on the sticks. They just are more open. And I think that we've seen the ability to have success with the passing game almost being set up by the fact that there is actually a threat of a run. The Colts had one of the worst running games, really season long. They had one of the worst running games until about the time I think that they played the Raiders 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I think they're going to definitely try to get that worked in, but they're also going to be passing the ball a lot to their running backs and trying to utilize their speed at that position across the middle. And I expect that they're going to go probably to, I don't know, they've targeted Trey Burton a lot, but T.Y. Hilton has been on fire. Zach Pascal had a pretty good game. Some of their more physical players maybe are guys they're going to go to, and that's not T.Y. So I'm not sure what his role is going to be in this game, but I do expect them to kind of attack the middle of that defense, see what's there, see if they can get that going, because they want to try to negate the speed and the pass rush. They can't leave Phillip Rivers back there hung out to dry and just get eaten alive by that pass rush. So I expect probably early and often they're going to try to get the running game going, and Frank Reich's pretty patient, so I don't think he'll abandon that even if it's not working great at the start.
Jeffrey, in the same vein, what happened to the Steelers offense, and how do they continue to get worse week in, week out?
Oh man. Well, we've covered this quite a bit, but basically we brought in Matt Canada to revitalize the run game and to get some creativity into the passing game, because teams pretty much solved it by the end of 2018. Teams knew what they were going to get from the Steelers passing game. It's just Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster were winning routes. It didn't matter. You knew it was coming, but you couldn't stop it all. That's why the Steelers' 2 tight ends back then, that was Jesse James and Vance McDonald, having fabulous seasons, because you couldn't stop everybody. You might kind of know what's coming, but you can't stop it all. This year, Ben does not have an Antonio Brown. Ben does not have that guy who is able to beat double coverage, is able to just be like, I know where you're going to be, and I'm going to get you the ball there, and you're going to be open. And if you're not open, you'll still make the play. He doesn't have that guy. So the predictability in the offense is a big problem. They brought in Matt Canada, but he wants Ben Roethlisberger to do things Ben Roethlisberger's not comfortable doing. And you don't take an old quarterback who's done things one way his whole career and ask him to relearn how to play football. That doesn't work well. That'd be like if Denver had asked Peyton Manning, learn a new offense when you come to Denver. No, they said, where's your playbook? Just bring your offense and we'll run whatever you're comfortable with. That's what you do. But that's not working. That's not working. They're trying to bring in some more things. And what they kind of did for most of the season was tricks. They had little tricks they were running to try and keep, Matt Canada's run game and Ben Roethlisberger's pass game separate, and not kind of like try and kind of, wink, wink, hide that from other teams. And teams caught on. Eventually they caught on. The run game disappeared. And now what they're trying to do is really do what they should have done in the first place. Had we had a real off season, had we had a real preseason and time to do all this stuff, is make Ben do this stuff and see, is it going to work? Because if it's not going to work, then this offense is toast. It just is. So they're trying to fix it. They're trying to get it going. We'll see. It's part of the reason it was so bad this last week is they were asking Ben to do things that he's just not good at. He's just hasn't been good at. He's not comfortable at them. But that's the only way we're going to win is if he grows as a player really to do the things he used to be able to do. He used to do them in the 2000s.
38-year-old dog learning new tricks. Hopefully he can get it under control. But Chris, I'm assuming you've probably been able to watch some of the last the past 4 Steeler games have all been prime time in some capacity, be it on a Wednesday or in the middle of a day on a Monday. But from what you've seen from the Steelers the last couple of weeks, do you see a potential that the Colts could shut them out at home?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is that the defense has actually kind of struggled for the Colts over the past few weeks. Granted, they've struggled against Deshaun Watson, and he kind of single-handedly, we all know divisional games don't really play the same as any other game, and the Texans always play the Colts tough. But they've really struggled all season long in the first half. They play very soft. They make a ton of adjustments, and typically their defense is locked down in the second half of games. But they're prone to kind of giving up some plays that are there. They haven't been as disciplined across the whole defense. They may be playing. Honestly, at this point of the season, guys are hurt. Even if they're not hurt, they're on the injury report or not, they're still pretty banged up. And you got guys like DeForest Buckner playing through ankle issues. You've got, you see Darius Leonard come up limping, but you never hear about it. It's like, okay, he doesn't feel great, I'm sure. You're playing through it, and that's fine, but you're going to be moving a little slower. So I've definitely seen a slight drop off. I think that they match up pretty well against the Steelers offense because they are just naturally a very good run defense. They don't have to rush a lot of guys. They rush 4, and they're really fast to the ball, good gang tacklers, and they're opportunistic, kind of in the same way the Steelers are. I don't know where at this point we stand, but I know defensively pretty similar in terms of turnovers. Colts have been better this year by far than they were last year at taking the ball away. And they're going to rely on that. Probably they've really relied on that over the past few weeks, more so than just shutting teams down. That they've been the beneficiaries of taking the ball away at good places on the field. So I think that's probably going to be their biggest key. But I don't think it'll be necessarily a shutdown performance because that's not really what they've done over the past few weeks.
Now, Jeffrey, something that's kind of jumped out to me on film a little bit is Chase Claypool, obviously someone we talk about a lot on the show, especially last week. It seemed like every time he was running open, the ball wasn't getting thrown to him. And when he was covered, the ball was getting thrown to him, a bit of a weird kind of mix there. How has he disappeared in the Steelers offense after kind of breaking out the first 8 weeks of the season?
Yeah, that is one of the interesting things about this year is Chase Claypool really started getting going. One of the big things is teams have learned how to defend him on his deep routes. So they get super physical with him, super physical, because one of the problems he has coming into the NFL is he is an incredibly physical player. He loves being the biggest dog, and you could see it on his Notre Dame film. He was the biggest dog on the field. He knew it, and he bullied everybody, and he enjoyed it. He loves that stuff. And then he gets in the NFL, and he's playing a bunch of guys who know how to play those guys. They have to be able to play those guys to be starters in the NFL, and they know how to deal with him. They're getting physical back with him. We're seeing that his hand fighting in his route is a little rough, but we're also seeing an offense where Ben isn't comfortable, and when Ben isn't comfortable, Claypool is not one of the guys he goes to. He's going a lot to Deontay Johnson. He's going heavily to Eric Ebron when he's uncomfortable, when he doesn't know, when he's not, he's just not comfortable back there in the pocket with the play calling, with the play action. And so he's going to guys that he trusts more. That's kind of Ben's style. So you're seeing him force a lot of passes to Eric Ebron, force a lot of passes to Deontay Johnson. And you are seeing him occasionally kind of pick Chase Claypool and be like, all right, I'm throwing to Chase. It almost feels like that. Like, it's like, all right, I'm throwing to Chase, and then Chase is covered. He's like, well, there you go, Chase, try and make a play. He also is giving Chase a lot of those chances. I think that the offseason where we were hearing about him beating Joe Hayden one-on-one and going up and taking balls down over guys and through them and just being that contested catch guy, has been thinking, okay, we need a deep shot here, or, we need this many yards. I'm going to throw it to Chase and see if he can do it. But he's not there yet, man. He's not ready for that. We saw him running open way too much in the Bengals game to not have that taken advantage of. But that's Ben Roethlisberger running play action. He's just not comfortable, and he doesn't see the field as well.
One thing I want to answer myself before we get into the next question. Ezra asked in the live chat, am I wrong for regretting picking Claypool over J.K. Dobbins of the Ravens? I will jump out and say absolutely not. Or absolutely, that is ridiculous to regret it. That's what I mean. Claypool is the right pick. You can still find a running back anywhere. Look at James Washington in Jacksonville. Running backs are dime a dozen. Like, I know wide receivers are coming out in bundles right now, especially with the rise of 7-on-7. You're going to see tons of wide receivers, extremely talented receivers come out year in, year out from here on for the rest of football existence, probably. But running backs, it's the thing. Like, you see all of them get signed after the rookie deals and they hit a wall. It's always every other position before running back for me, and that's how I'm always going to look at it until someone changes it, and I don't really expect that. Even look at the Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, two guys that were talked about being the best running backs in football. This year, they never played. So that's another way to look at it. But Chris, getting back on topic here, Darius Leonard, talking about another beast. Where would you rank him in the hierarchy of NFL inside linebackers?
Well, I would have him pretty high. He's an incredible player. He has grown. Actually, I think he's the beneficiary of kind of a mythos about him a little bit that grows up because he's a compelling guy off the field and on the field. But he does a whole lot more for this defense than simply his play. He's actually grown in coverage. But man, the thing that Darius Leonard does, maybe better than any other will linebacker, certainly 4-3 inside linebacker, is, man, he takes the ball away at the right time. Like, he somehow finds, I don't know how this is even possible for a player to do this, but man, there are some players who just have that kind of feel for the moment, and they make these big plays in critical moments. And Darius Leonard is that guy. I mean, he did it last week to close out the game. Houston Texans knocking on the door, preparing to score a game-tying touchdown and possibly send the game into overtime. And they hit Kiki Kuti right at the 5-yard line. He's going to go in. Darius Leonard punches the ball out. Colts recover it in the end zone. Touchback, game over. If that happens a couple of times, it's fortunate and it's pretty cool, but it's, but when it happens week in and week out, he's making these big plays. He's just there on every play. He's making great tackles. He is the heart and soul of that defense, and he's kind of guiding them through. Man, he's just an incredible player. He's one of the most exciting Colts defenders that I've had the pleasure of watching. And he's a game changer. I mean, they are a totally different defense in the same kind of way, maybe different because the position isn't as critical, but in the same kind of way that DeForest Buckner impacts the game, Darius Leonard does. And what a steal for Chris Ballard to find him and add him to the team, because I think of that class, there's no competition. He's the best guy that came out on the interior in that class. But yeah, man, it's exciting to watch him, and I'm excited to see how he does Sunday, because he made the Pro Bowl, but he's going to carry everybody else's chip on his shoulder. He's the guy who always feels like he's gotten a personal slight and views everything personally. If you want to get a like on Twitter from Darius Leonard, say something bad about him, because he looks for the personal slights and likes them. And you won't get a comment, but you get a like because he wants to hear it, because he's motivating himself that way.
Oh, God, that is so ridiculous. One time I talked about Mike Hilton, and I thought, like, Cam Sutton might replace him this year. Like, he looks really good in the offseason. And it was like all the way down the thread, he was never tagged. It was like he read the whole thing and he liked the last one. I'm like, really? Really? That's the interaction I'm going to get today? Okay, but that is really funny that guys get motivated by that. The old Michael Jordan just going to make up some drama here and just feel angry about something that isn't real. But to each their own, I guess. Darius Leonard's been a beast, and I guess that has been continuing for good reason. Now, Jeffrey, getting in the Steelers side of things, last time I think we'll ever have to talk about it, Juju Smith-Schuster today said he's going to stop dancing on the opposition's logos before games start. Do you think that was really a distraction, or is that just because the Steelers started losing now, people want to point a finger at something?
Man, I was going to wait until we did our predictions to bring this up because it's clear the Steelers are going to win now, man. Like, well, okay, we had our problems, but Juju Smith-Schuster's done dancing. Super Bowl, we're going to win 2 Super Bowls this year. We're going to win 2. If Juju Smith-Schuster's not dancing, it's done. Like, that's it's not a thing. It's not. Everyone wants to make it a thing. Like, I don't know. I can't remember who it was who said it, but they were like, the only reason they're talking about this is because we're not winning. We're playing terribly, so people are talking about this. Literally, no one talked about it week 1. No one talked about it week 3. No one talked about it week 5, week 7, week 9. Nobody. The team starts losing, and it's like, oh, you know what the problem with this team is that Juju Smith-Schuster and his TikToking. I think we all know that's why this is a thing. That's why this is an issue. And because his teammates are having to answer for it, he's stopping it. Good for him. But you know what? It's nothing. It means literally nothing.
Yeah. You know what? I think we can tie a bow on that one. It would be funny though if he were to score in this game and run to center field and dance on the Steelers logo. I'd probably get a really big kick out of that and kind of hope it happens. But I don't know.
We'd have to win the game. After the game, if the Steelers somehow win this game, I would love to see it. To just go dance on the Steelers logo, put it on TikTok.
Best case scenario, OT, walk-off touchdown, just sprints to midfield, starts doing a weird dance on the logo.
Pulls the cell phone out of his sock.
Yeah, as one does. We know receivers like to do that, but oh, goodness. A little less lighthearted question, Chris. This is probably going to be a challenging one, especially considering whose show you're currently on. You got to keep that in mind here. Who is the better defense, the Steelers or the Colts?
So I would say there's no question the Steelers are a better pass rushing team. And I think they probably have the better pass defense for sure. The Colts are an inside out strong defense, and they're maybe more, I don't know. They're really they're such close quality defenses. I would be hard pressed to say exactly, but I would honestly say, I think probably the Colts have the better running defense, the stronger middle, just because I think Darius Leonard and Bobby Okereke as inside linebackers are excellent. And then when they're getting off clean because they've got really good defensive line, they're such a good run defense team. They've struggled on the back end a little bit. They've got a rookie and a second year guy playing safety, and they're both good players. Kari Willis and Julian Blackman are good players, but they're 1 and 2 years in this league. They're going to make some mistakes. And neither of them was, Minkah Fitzpatrick or somebody who's expected to be one of the best at their position. They're guys that Ballard has found a little bit later, and they've turned out to be really good players, but they don't have that high upside that some of the Steelers defensive backs have. And so I would say definitely, as far as, the passing game goes, that edge is definitely the Steelers. I would say maybe against the run, the Colts are a little bit better, but man, they're both such good defenses, and they're both so opportunistic that nobody really wants to play them on offense on either side.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thankfully, if the Colts have a better run defense, the Steelers can't run the ball. So maybe we can win the game. But getting back into things, Jeffrey, does playing this game in Pittsburgh mean anything? Like, there's still no fans, but does it impact the outcome of this game in the slightest?
I don't think so. I don't think home field really has meant anything at all in this season, and especially right now. It is nice, 2 road games in a row. It is nice to go back and have a home game, and maybe that'll get the team a little bit of comfort level. Maybe that'll help them, bounce back a bit. If they get some other things squared away and they're ready to bounce back, maybe that makes that this week instead of next week that they bounce back, something like that. I don't think it really matters that much, especially in 2020. If they had the full stadium of fans, yeah, Steelers Nation would matter. But no, I don't think it's that big a deal.
So in the same vein, I guess, Chris, how have the Indianapolis Colts been as the road team this year? Have you seen any difference in them?
There hasn't really been a huge difference. I would say it's been a lot more about environment in terms of, field condition and weather and things like that. Those are things that have been much more likely to be a factor. I mean, we've got a rookie kicker who's been pretty solid, but we have noticed playing on tough fields to kick on, he struggled a little bit early. He's really kind of locked in recently, but they've been playing in pretty good weather conditions for most of that time. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays, especially as playoffs roll in, playing someplace like Pittsburgh that's kind of historically a tough place to kick. Those are things that have been he's been really good, but I mean, he's not kicked in Pittsburgh before, and he's going to be facing some of those are the things I think that are going to be maybe challenging is on special teams for somebody like him. And I don't know that it'll be a big deal for the offense necessarily, because Phillip Rivers is that's not his forte, but he's getting rid of the ball quickly. They can run the ball reasonably well. They're going to be able to lean on that if he's struggling. But I would say definitely for the kicking game, which everybody just, really loves to watch kicking games really closely. I know. But that's maybe something that you have to watch to see how that shakes out in this game and really any of those road games that are going to be in outdoor stadiums.
Hey, we got to play the Ravens twice a year, so we hear about Justin Tucker ad nauseum. But hey, I love me some Hot Rod. The specs are awesome. Rodrigo Blankenship. I mean, if anyone was made to be a kicker, if you ask me, just describe what a kicker looks like, it's him. It's Rodrigo Blankenship. that is the model for what a kicker is. But Jeffrey, speaking about individual players in this game, he might not even play. He was out today with a back injury and exited the Bengals game. But is this the Eric Ebron revenge game?
That would be fun. That would be nice to see. I would love to see Eric Ebron go off in this game. I don't think it is, though. The Colts have coverage from their linebackers. He is not. He even before that injury, he was playing banged up. You could tell he was having some trouble. So I don't think it will be. I would love to see it. I would love to see Ben and Eric Ebron get going. But then I was really looking forward to playing in Cincinnati because Ben was going to be good in Cincinnati. He's always good in Cincinnati, and until he took on the field and was awful. So I don't. No, I don't have any hope.
Chris, honest question from Ebron's tenure now to Mo Alie-Cox taking over as tight end number 1 in Indianapolis. Can you firmly say if one was better than the other as the Indianapolis Colts tight end number 1?
Oh, it was definitely Ebron. I mean, now he didn't actually play as the tight end 1. That was more Jack Doyle's role. Right. But Ebron he had an incredible year in 2018. Andrew Luck always looked to tight ends. He wanted to go to the tight end on almost every play. He does. Tight ends were to Andrew Luck like running backs are to Phillip Rivers. They're always looking to get the ball to those guys. And Ebron was schemed open. I actually broke down on Stampede Blue every one of his touchdowns in 2018, which was awesome because it was a great season. He had 14 of them and 13 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. And honestly, he was good, but Frank Reich had him schemed so wide open on probably 10 of those touchdowns that anybody really could have made those plays. Now, it's not to say and take any credit away from him executing and doing what he needed to do, but a lot of it was really his execution of a scheme that Frank Reich put in place to get him open and him just capitalizing on it. And props to him for doing that. But I think there's no question. I mean, he was such a valuable part of the offense, especially in 2018. 2019, not as much. And a lot of Colts fans feel a little bit like we would be excited for. There's Colts fans who definitely are, maybe excited to see Eric Ebron again and hopefully see him get roughed up a little bit by the linebackers because they have some ill feelings toward him. I don't. I think he was an exciting player. It was really fun to watch him, and I hope he does good things starting next week.
You know what? I think everyone wants to see the Browns lose. I think the NFL is just better when the Browns suck. So I totally get that too. But
all is right with the world that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it is 2020. So, goodness me,
the upside down now.
Yeah,
Cleveland Browns Super Bowl. That's the peak 2020 right there.
No, don't even say. Well, I guess technically the Super Bowl will be played in 2021. So. Thankfully, we have that on our side. But Jeffrey, we just heard Chris talking about an offensive-minded coach running guys wide open. Oh, how does that sound? That sounds really nice to me. How does that sound to you?
Oh, that would be nice. But we saw guys open. We've seen them open. They're just not getting the ball. Someone made a comment in the chat saying Ben has to stop getting Ebron killed. Yeah, you can't throw to Juju when the strong safety is crashing down on him and completely not even looking at Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is no one within 10 yards of him, just beyond that, and the strong safety is coming to take Juju Smith-Schuster's head off, and he's like, oh, just dump it off to Juju. Boom, fumble. You know, he threw to Eric Ebron, and Eric Ebron got hurt. The linebacker who was covering the flat backed up to make that a tighter throw. Anthony McFarland is wide open in the flat. Had an easy 5, 6, 7 yards. No problem. Ben is just staring down Eric Ebron and then throws it to him when he's covered, and he takes a big shot for it. Like, Ben can't keep throwing those. He can't. He is getting, and he's not accurate enough to like nail him in there like he was with Antonio Brown. These guys are not Antonio Brown, and Ben is not the quarterback that we saw throwing those passes to Antonio Brown through 2017. That's not this. You know, he's got to advance. He's got to evolve a bit. He's got to stop like getting his receivers in trouble.
Jeffrey, one really quick question here. Yes or no? Randy Fichtner, I know a lot of Steeler fans want him out. Do you think this is his last home regular season game as the Steelers offense coordinator?
Absolutely not. People wanted Keith Butler fired.
Also very true.
People wanted Keith Butler fired. They brought in whatever his face is, the other defensive backs guy, the guy who does the secondary.
Oh, Terrell Austin.
Yeah, Terrell Austin. This defense is incredible. It's incredible. Randy Fichtner's here to stay. As long as Ben Roethlisberger's here, Randy Fichtner is probably here to stay.
All right. Now, Chris, we wind down our shows with a similar trio of questions. The first one being if you could pluck one guy off the Steelers roster and put him on the Colts roster. And I know what you're thinking. So there's one stipulation. You can't take TJ Watt. You got to take one guy off the Steelers roster.
Oh, you're handicapping me right out of the gate.
Oh, because everyone said TJ Watt. I think it was like 10 weeks consecutive. So we're like, I still like this question, but we got to take TJ Watt off the table. So I'm going to pose that to you. Pluck one guy off the Steelers that's not named TJ Watt. Drop him on the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, unfortunately, TJ Watt definitely fits the need of the Colts the most. But if I can't have TJ Watt, I'm going to take Minkah Fitzpatrick because if I can have a game-changing talent in the secondary, you always got to take that guy. Man, the Colts have seen the difference that it makes just with a rookie in Julian Blackmon back there who has a nose for the football, and he doesn't have near the skill or the polish that Minkah Fitzpatrick does. And I think, man, if you can get a guy who can play fast and just has the ability to change games. I mean, the Colts saw it last year when he, picked off Brissett and ran back a pick six from, I think, like either in the end zone or right on the doorstep of it. I mean, just kind of this back-breaking play because he's just a heads-up guy who has the ability to make those kinds of plays. Man, you always, even in a position where you maybe don't need it as much, you can always use another game-changing talent like that. And I think that's probably a guy who you can't pass up.
Jeffrey, same question to you. Who you taking off the Colts?
Oh, that's easy. I'm taking Leonard. Darius Leonard. We got no middle linebackers right now. We got nobody. We're down our top two middle linebackers. Vince Williams coming back from injury. It's easy. Darius Leonard. He is what Devin Bush looked like. Like we talked about the turnovers. Devin Bush had a ton of turnovers, similar to Darius Leonard. This year, Devin Bush was doing fewer, but he was taking on so much responsibility and making so many other people better. He's that kind of player. He is that kind of impact. I would take Darius Leonard because we don't have Devin Bush right now.
I don't typically answer this question, but we need someone to block DeForest Buckner. So give me Quentin Nelson because I love me some Big Q. He's a beast.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, especially the way the Steelers like to pull their guards. That'd be a lot of fun. But
and who are we starting to left guard? Who are we starting left guard this game?
Goodness, it's probably going to be Derwin Gray. Is my assumption. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not good. Hassenauer would be worse.
Yeah.
Chris, your game X factor. If you can pick one player that would have a sneaky good game, who would that one player be?
Man, so offensively, this is almost impossible to call. So I'm just gonna avoid that entirely and go over to the defense because it's a way easier pick. He got some pop over the past few weeks, but man, Kenny Moore is one of the most underrated slot corners. He doesn't want to be called a slot corner, but underrated cornerbacks, largely playing out of the nickel. But man, he's one of those underrated players who I anticipate as we get closer to the back half of the season, we're going to see Matt Eberflus start to throw into more blitzing situations. They haven't blitzed frequently at all this season. They're more of a 4-man pass rush most of the time. But when they do, they like to bring him off the edge. A lot of times they'll bring Darius Leonard up the middle when they do that. And he has just this ability to evade and bend like you don't see out of a 185-pound guy. And he can take down the passer. He's been pretty good at it. He's got a pretty high percentage of those times when he does blitz that he impacts the play. He made a stupid interception, which I'm sure everybody saw. I think it was against the Raiders in the end zone where he one hand catches this ball with his close hand. It was the most awkward and ridiculous catch that he had no business making that catch. But man, if you don't know Kenny Moore's name, it's just because the Colts don't play a lot of primetime games. And he's one of those players who just has a knack for making big third down plays, whether it be in the pass rush or getting his hand on the ball. I expect him to be a big factor in the game because he is every week.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a nickel corner. I think Jeffrey and I were having a conversation about, man, should we cut Ben to keep Mike Hilton around? That's how much we love our nickel corner. But Jeffrey, same question to you. Who's your X factor for this game?
Good or bad, Avery Williamson. Phillip Rivers is going to be targeting his running backs. We need a linebacker to step up. We don't have Robert Spillane. If Robert Spillane was here, I would feel much more comfortable with the Steelers' defense. We don't have him. Avery Williamson is going to have to step up and have a big game.
Give me Marquise Pouncey. This offensive line needs to have a good game. Pouncey, the guy in the middle, calling the shots. He's going to have whoever beside him on his left. DeCastro's he's been fine. Clearly been playing injured all year, but the guy in the middle, I think Marquise Pouncey's going to have a good game, especially with that Colts defensive line. Chris, final question of the night. We will. Actually, I'll ask it to Jeffrey first because he knows it coming. He knows it's coming. It's our score prediction. So I'll get to you second. But Jeffrey, final score for this game. You have a really sad look on your face. I'm not
I don't want to answer this.
You have to. You're required to answer this question.
Oh, 27-14 Colts.
That's not as bad as I thought you were going to say. But Chris, what way are you leaning?
Well, I'm going to be kinder because I honestly expect the Steelers to do more. But I think this is the the part of you guys coming on the back end of some rough games. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt that the Steelers are going to bring it and they're going to be ready to head into the playoffs. I do think 27. The Colts have been in that ballpark almost every week for the Colts, but I think it's going to be a Colts win, but I think it's going to be a close one. I think 24-27, and I think the kicking games will be a factor. So.
I also don't want to answer this one. I honestly think this is going to be the culmination and the worst of the games. But then I think that I'm like, if this is a bad game, I think the game against the Browns in Week 17 is going to be even worse for the Steelers. So with that said, I think it's going to be like 20-3, like for the Colts. This Steelers offense, they got to show something, and they haven't. And maybe it's they score a touchdown from James Washington running an out route and then takes it 50 yards again. Yeah, but outside of a play like that, I still don't see them getting it together, especially against the defense like the Indianapolis Colts. So as we get out, Chris, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, actually, I host a podcast. I can actually speak sometimes while I'm on it, but I host a podcast and trip over my words on that one called Stampede Radio. And you can subscribe to the Stampede Blue podcast feed to find that one, but we're all on there. Lots of good stuff coming up on Stampede Blue all the time. And I'm on Twitter at Chris Blystone, and I like to tweet. If you ever get passive-aggressive office gifts, then you know you've irritated me, and I don't know how to be nice, so I'm just responding with Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute, because that's the only way I know how to respond without being a jerk. So,
hey, nothing wrong with that at all. I have to run the BTSC social media pages, so I know what it's like, and just a GIF every now and then it keeps it pretty family friendly, I'd say, before getting too bad. But Jeffrey, I know you got great stuff coming out all the time. What can we expect from you?
I actually have two of my favorite things I've ever made coming out here. One just came out this week earlier. My reaction to the game, where I showed how bad Ben Roethlisberger played. And tomorrow, I think, the Vertex me and Dave Schofield put together is coming out, where really I give Dave a lot of credit. He put together some stats and asked me a question, and in answering it, really made sense what was going on this last week with the Steelers and how they are really approaching these last games as a chance to restart and get this offense going in the direction it should have gone from the beginning. It's coming out tomorrow, so look for that.
And as we sign out, I want to make sure everyone is clicking over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Make sure you're listening to our entire family of podcasts. BTSC, we come out with a ton of stuff, a lot of podcast exclusive stuff as well. So make sure you're subscribing to that wherever you get your podcasts. And as we go out, it's almost Christmas, or Hanukkah just finished, I believe. Kwanzaa, the winter solstice was the other day. It's almost Friday, if that's what you're into. Whatever it is, we love that you tune in. We love that you're Steeler fans, even the Colts fans that are in the chat tonight. Just be safe. Have a happy new year. Thank you for tuning in, and we're excited to talk to you guys in the new year. Oh, I guess our show is New Year's Eve, or the New Year's Eve? I don't know.
Yeah,
so we will see you one more time before the new year, but thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you shortly, I suppose. Hopefully not on a 4-game losing streak, but oh goodness, we better just sign out. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you soon.